Thank you for being here, everyone, at the Planning Makes Perfect Strategies to Avoid a Crisis webinar. I'm very excited to bring this information to you and have once again part of that Care Answered family, folks we work really closely with and that we like and trust and refer clients to. Stephanie Alberts is here, and I will introduce her further in just a moment. So again, my name is Nicole Christensen. I'm the CEO of Care Answered, as well as the author of the book From Crisis to Calm. I'm a board certified patient advocate. And at Care Answered, we get healthcare done. We help navigate people through the healthcare system to access their best care. So without further ado, let's talk about how we can avoid crisis. And a lot of it is knowledge, right? Knowledge is power. And the more options we're aware of, the better we can select the option that works best for us. So here's the reality, right? Caregivers. It's a word that most people do not align themselves with. For what reason, I'm not quite sure. Maybe we're used to doing it all and we think that's just part of life, but we are indeed, most of us, caregivers. And you'll learn more about that on this slide right here. So 2 out of 3 workers in the US between the ages of 45 and 74 are providing care for an adult loved one. Working caregivers report that their caregiving obligations significantly affect their work life. And so 49% of the US workforce expects to be providing elder care in the next 5 years. 48% of the US workforce have provided elder care in the last 5 years. I am no mathematician, but that is 99%. So that's basically all of us. So we're all in the same boat and we have resources in each other to help each other out. The thing that is really true and clear is that there's a lot of preventable medical error. A lot of that is in hospitals, but other kind of healthcare institutions and at home as well. So 80% of medical errors are preventable. Medical error is one of the most common causes of death and injury in the US. And falls are also very common in hospitals. I bring this up because unfortunately, many of us will find ourselves or a loved one in a hospital, hopefully for a short period of time, but it can happen. And over 26% of those falls lead to injury. There's another tidbit of information I want to share with you regarding understanding our healthcare instructions, if you will. So we call that health literacy. So when people hear illiteracy, they get a little bit uncomfortable. It has nothing to do with how smart you are. It has nothing to do with how many degrees you have. It is really the ability to carry out instructions or understanding of our healthcare. Again, many of my clients are in the healthcare field. So it's not that they're not knowledgeable, but it's hard when it's you or your person to necessarily carry out those things. So Take Charge campaign. Many of you may have heard me speak about it before. It's a wonderful campaign that Pulse of New York took on. They do advocacy and education, a nonprofit group. Please check them out. They're very good at assisting people with patient safety, which is huge, as well as helping family members be advocate for other family members and friends. So what I call this is be prepared, not scared. We're avoiding crises right now, right? That's what we're talking about. And these are 5 things that we really need to look at, okay? So first is the healthcare proxy and advance directive. So just briefly, a healthcare proxy is a piece of paper, but more importantly, it's a person that you've selected to make healthcare decisions on your behalf. What you're really doing is giving them your voice. They want to be able to say what you would say if you were able to. And a lot of times when people think of healthcare proxy or advanced directives, they think pull the plug, don't pull the plug, which is a case scenario that's what we most frequently hear potentially on the news. But and we know that the importance of that, right? We've heard of families arguing and falling apart because that healthcare proxy, those advanced directives were not put in place, and one person thinks one thing and the other person thinks the other, and what the right choice is not clear. So we definitely want to avoid that. We want, as patients, to have control of our own care, and that comes with choosing a healthcare proxy. And as importantly, having those discussions with that person. So those discussions are, what would I want known, or what do I want done if I become incapacitated? Hopefully, many of us will be, if we're incapacitated, it'll be for a short period of time. Unfortunately, people faint, right? That in that moment, you're incapacitated. Or people unfortunately get into car accidents where they may be temporarily incapacitated. That healthcare proxy should be known. They should know what you would want done. They should know your medications and your diagnoses, and they should be alerted if that happens so that they can speak on your behalf as if they were you. They are not making decisions necessarily for you, they are making your decision. So it's so important. And that discussion is so important because people sometimes go throughout their lives wondering and stressed and anxious if they made the right decision for the person that they had to make that decision for. So don't put anybody in that position, certainly nobody you love. Find the right person who can carry out your decisions. Care Answered does have care control partners in which we can help you with that. We can help you select an appropriate healthcare proxy and enable and facilitate that discussion, as well as give you a QR scan code that you'd have in your wallet. So God forbid you are incapacitated, a healthcare institution can scan it and that information will be there. Medication lists, that's the second in our Take Charge campaign. So most people 65 and over have over 5 medications, and many people younger have more than one medication or supplement or vitamin. We should all have this available. Have a list on us, make sure our healthcare proxy or care and caregiver have that list as well. And that list includes our medication, why we take it, like for what diagnosis, when we take it, who prescribed it, and the dosage, right? Very, very important that our healthcare proxy, as well as we, have that information. And we'll talk a little bit about being prepared in doctor's offices with that information as well. Prep for a doctor's appointment or telehealth appointment. We only have about 10 or 15 minutes with our doctors, so we need to make it count. So we're not going to remember the things that happened to us previously, or even previous diagnosis we might not recall to mention with a different doctor. So write down your concerns so that you can put them forth in the doctor's appointment and make sure that anything that you need addressed is addressed. Be prepared. And prevent infection. This has been going on for a very long time. COVID, it was heightened, and I don't want anybody to forget about it. So preventing infection requires us to wash our hands often and to wash them for 20 seconds or happy birthday and wash them well. If we're in a hospital or healthcare setting, anybody that visits us, any staff at that facility, they also need to be washing their hands or using hand sanitizer. It's so very important. We know it prevents infection. So make sure that that's being done. And then hire or have an advocate. When it's us or somebody that we love, sometimes we're not the best advocate for that person, whether it be because we don't know all of the information, because none of it is particularly intuitive. We come out of different generations that, you know, there are some people that have had a doctor for all of their ailments, and that's what they're used to. And even if they have a doctor for every single ailment, they still think all the doctors, all the clinicians know all of the information. It's not true. And so we need to make sure we have somebody that can advocate for our best care. So have that person in mind. Okay. So a little bit more about advocating at doctor's appointments. As I said, we're going to write down any and all health concerns, whether you use it digitally, on your phone, or you write it down paper and pen. You need to have that information. You will forget what happened last week by the time you have the doctor's appointment next week. We got a lot going on. You have to write it down. I suggest that you have like a health notebook or in your notes or what have you on your phone, and just make a list of those concerns and to make sure that they get addressed. Again, the patient and caregiver should have a list of medications, name of medication, dosage, what diagnosis or what it's used for, who prescribed it. And even if you're going to the same clinician that prescribed the medication, do not be under the impression that they had it in front of them, they reviewed your file. I'm not saying that they didn't, but we have to put the onus in our own hands as advocates and as patients. So have it with you so that you can make sure that they have that same list. Ask Me 3. This is from the National Safety Foundation, and I really love to use this one because a lot of us go into a doctor's office and really just want to get the heck out. So we want to make sure we understand everything. So one of the things is, what is my main problem? So you might go into a doctor's office or clinician's office and they say some things and it gets confusing. What's the main problem? Have them tell you that. And then what do I need to do? Maybe you need tests run. Maybe you need to take a prescription. Maybe you have to go to another specialist. And why is it important to me? It's much easier for all of us to act on information when we know why it's important for us to do so, right? We're not necessarily going to go out of our way if we don't know how it can positively impact us or what it means to do it. So these are really important questions to ask and then to write down the answers. Please don't be one of those people, and there are many among us, I'm sure, that go to the doctor's office and then their loved ones, you come home, their loved ones say, oh, what happened? And we're like, oh, everything is fine, because we don't remember. We just wanted to get out of there and we weren't really understanding everything that was told. So I call it talk back. So repeat what you hear the clinician say in your own words. That gives both of you a better understanding of what's going on and what is being said. It can actually been quite a wake-up call. I've been there when advocating with patients for patients or my clients, and what they say is not what the clinician meant to say. So it's good for all of us. We can all speak in our own vernacular in whatever kind of work we do. So this makes it clear that we need to speak in language that each other understands. And it's your life, so you need to understand what the clinician is saying. And the last thing I have on this slide is medications and your pharmacists. So we know that doctors prescribe medication and we pick them up at the pharmacy potentially or have them delivered to us. What I would suggest is that you only have one pharmacy, because if there's any counter indication for your medications and they're at two different pharmacies, it doesn't necessarily alert. It's not one big system, just like going to our doctors is not one big portal. So they may not know about it, and you might take something that interacts with another medication from another pharmacy in a way that can hurt you. So, try to use the same pharmacist or the same pharmacy. And then when you get those medications, we've all seen it, says, do you have any questions? And then we sign because we want to get out of that line and go home. But if you have a new medication or you're just concerned about a side effect of a medication, or just want to have some questions answered, don't just sign off on that. Ask to speak to the pharmacist so that you understand. And I also always say check your medications, because again, we're all human. There's errors that can be made. So make sure that you're getting the prescription that was supposed to be in there. Now that it's all done electronically, it's even more important that we know what prescriptions are being called into the pharmacist so that we know it's the right one for us. Patient portals. Okay, I'll try not to wax too much on this, but yes, they are essential. Sometimes I know they can have glitches. Some of them can be a pain in the butt. We may have several different portals from different clinicians, but it is so important. It can literally save your life. It has happened. So let's just talk about the communication. So patient portal communication is very helpful with our clinicians because we can see it almost in real time or very soon after our appointment. The information is there. You can share it and should share it. Again, your healthcare proxy should be somebody that you trust with your medical information. So perhaps you want your healthcare proxy to also have access to it so they know what's going on, so you don't have to necessarily talk every time you go to a doctor's appointment, but they can see it and they can make sure that they are updated on what's going on with you. It's also a great way to speak directly to your clinician. So it used to be, I'm sure we all remember, before patient portals, to try to get in contact with your doctor after that doctor's appointment was close to impossible because they're treating patients all day and they're not going to get back to you, and it would take forever. So now, those that utilize the portal appropriately, clinicians is what I mean here, they will get back to you in a reasonable amount of time. Generally, it'll say in 48 hours or within 3 business days or something like that. And some of them are super quick, even though they have that leeway, so that you can be in direct communication. And as I said before, knowledge is power. This is knowledge on your health. So you need to know it. Even if you're not reading it every single time, you know where it is, you know how to access it, and it's there for your use. The other change within patient portals is that clinicians' notes are there. This only happened within the past 2 years, that the clinician's notes are in the portal. So review those notes. One of the other reasons I say can save your life is, again, we're all people. We can make mistakes. And I've had situations in which there was a wrong diagnosis in the portal, in the notes, for my client. That can have a horrible impact if that was passed on to the next clinician, or you were given medicines for a wrong diagnosis, or it was passed on if you were hospitalized later on. So really do review it and ask questions regarding the notes. That can prepare you for your next visit, or you can speak to your clinician directly through the portal, asking a question about the note. Because if something is there that you didn't write down or you didn't understand happened in the appointment, it's good to get that figured out sooner rather than later. As well as your test results should be in that portal, so you can ask questions if something seems off to you or not usual. You can still get these notes through on paper. So that has always been the case. So you can request them to be on paper if portals are not your thing. They can cost up to 75 cents a page. But with a portal, it's all in one place, which is nice as well. So sometimes I say if people aren't really accessing their portal as well, just set up the portal so that maybe somebody else can help you access it. Maybe CareAnswer can help you access it so that you can have access to it when you need to, even if it's overwhelming at the time. Okay, how do we advocate to prevent errors? Ask, ask, ask. It's like what I mentioned in the doctor's office. Really ask until you understand it. So what tests are they running? What are they looking for in these tests, right? Sometimes we're asked to take tests and people just take them and they don't know why. So ask so that you're informed, because again, people make mistakes. You want to make sure you're the right, I'm the right Nicole Christensen they're talking to, and not a different one. And I'm going for a test that's going to be appropriate for me. Another question to ask is, based on the symptoms or the test findings, what do they feel the diagnosis is? What else could it be? So there's an expression I've used that I enjoy. It's to a hammer, every problem is a nail, right? So if your clinician is seeing the same thing over and over again, they might just assume that you have the same thing. So with all of us, when we are asked what else could it be, or what's another solution, it makes us think a little bit more broader. So do that for your clinician, just to make sure what else it can be. It also can prepare you if there's going to be more tests. They're like, it could be this, but if it's not this, then we might have another test for this, or we might have to do another series of tests. So find out that information, make sure that they're thinking of you as well. And what details and guidelines is the doctor following for the treatment? I'm not expecting you to know, nor do I know, the details and guidelines for every procedure or what have you. But again, it's a way to make sure that the clinician is thinking in the right way, or the hospital is thinking in the right way. So, because they all have a name and a structure and a guideline. So just make sure that they're following it. So it's one little tip just to make sure everybody's going through all of the guidelines. Medications, again, having your list of medications, their dosages, why you take it, when you take it. Very important, because you may have your pre-hospitalization medications, and then they might add or subtract medications when you're in the hospital. So it's really important to have that with you, and know it. Again, your healthcare proxy as well. And ask about any additional medication that they're giving you, how it will be administered, how will it interact with your current medication and your previous diagnoses that have nothing to do potentially with why you were hospitalized. So make sure your advocate or you are asking those questions, and do ask to be notified if there's any change in medication when you're in a hospital. Now, granted, will they have the time and capabilities, and will they remember to do it? Maybe not. So if your advocate can just be on it, and then ask periodically, is there been any change in medication? Has there been any change in medication? Which is what we do at Care Answered, just so that we're on top of it, because things change quickly and it may need to change quickly, but you still need to know about it. These are some resources that I have here to find out an appropriate doctor for you. That's the nydoctorprofile.com, to compare if you're going to a rehab or a nursing home where somebody you love is. They have Medicare.gov, has those comparisons, so that you can have more information. Again, knowledge is power, to make the best decision for yourself. There's also information about surgeons, as well as the infection rate of hospitals, and back to the Medicare.gov. And Care Answered always does blog and does these webinars so that we can get information out there, so that you're aware of different things that you can utilize. So that's me. Again, Nicole Christensen. There's some information to contact us for a free consultation, and different places to find us, and about the book, my book, From Crisis to Calm, which actually has notes sections so that you can ask the questions in different scenarios and write it down and know of your different options. So that's me as far as how to prevent a crisis. And these are everyday things that all of us can use, especially those of us that are caregivers or have clients that can use this information. Does anybody have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Hi. Thank
Hi,
you for
Donna.
this information. I apologize for being late. I Hope I didn't miss too much in the first 15 minutes. I apologize.
No worries.
But as far as the clinician's notes go, is there a time frame where those notes are, have to be in the system by?
That's a really good question. It's generally it's a different answer depending. So when it's a doctor's office or clinician's office, it's generally in there within a week, I would say. I find that for myself, my family, and my clients, if it's a test results, it's generally in there before the clinician even gets it. It goes directly in. So it shouldn't take much time. If it is taking more than, I would say, if it was taking more than 3 or 4 business days, I would contact them and see if there's a reason the notes weren't there. Now, if you're talking about a hospital or rehab facility, it seems to take them forever. So a lot of times it's not up until after that person is discharged. So it's really important to advocate when somebody is in a facility to get that information sooner. I had a situation in which they said, oh, we'll mail the information to you because the portal's not up yet. And it was a life and death situation. I said, we don't have that kind of time. You need to read to me all of the medications and diagnosis, and I need to get in touch with the doctor immediately. So don't wait on ceremony, certainly, but that's been my general understanding.
And is Care Answered specific to New York?
Care Answered, the organization, is actually throughout the United States, but we work virtually outside of New York. We work virtually inside of New York too, but definitely we don't have feet on the ground in the other states.
Okay, so people who are in other states though can access this information pretty.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking.
And I saw that this is being recorded. Is this something that gets posted to the blog?
Yes. So it'll be recorded and you'll have access to it. It's evergreen. So and we'll send the replay to everyone as well.
Is it available to people, to anybody who goes on the website?
Correct. Thank you for asking. All right. Thank you for those excellent questions. Now we have the second half of our webinar, and let me introduce Stephanie Alberts. So again, all the guests that we have on our webinars are a part of the Care Answered family, people that we respect and know are truly knowledgeable and experts in their field and feel really comfortable referring people to. So I'm very excited to have her here. So as for an introduction, Stephanie is a partner at Forchelli, Deegan and Terrana, LLP. She co-chairs the firm's tax, trust, and estates practice group. She also, her practice includes the development of an individualized estate plan for each client, which adheres to that client's estate planning objectives. So it means that she's looking at that person and their needs and making sure they're met. So it's not it's not a template, it's individualized. She routinely prepares wills, trusts, and other estate planning documents and has extensive knowledge of estate, gift, and generation skipping transfer tax, as well as income tax issues related to estate planning. So thank you so much, Stephanie, for being here, and I'll have you take it away.
Thank you very much, Nicole and Care Answered, for giving me this opportunity today, and Nicole for your fabulous presentation. So I'm just going to take a minute here and share my screen. Oh, okay. Going back. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you, Nicole, for the fabulous introduction. I am a trust and estates lawyer. I co-chair the trust and estates division here at Forchelli, Deegan and Terrana. So today, I am going to focus on some basic estate planning strategies that, in my opinion, everyone should consider, and also share with you some real-life examples of what could happen if you just fail to plan. At the very least, these last 3 years that all of us have lived through have demonstrated for us that life is unpredictable. And while estate planning itself is one of those topics that many do not want to face, I really truly believe, because I practice this every day, it is so very important for every one of us to take some time to think about these situations and make a plan. Because like Nicole so eloquently put before, you need to put these documents in place and speak for yourself. And estate planning is your opportunity to do that. So the way I'm going to present this today is the who, what, where, when, and why, and how of estate planning. And with the why highlighting some of those stories I discussed before. What happens if you just fail to plan? So let's start with the who. Who should plan? Every individual, regardless of your age, family structure, or level of financial wealth, should have a plan. And I often have clients that say, I don't have any money. I don't need a plan. Well, that is entirely the wrong view to take. And I tell my clients, there's one of two examples that could give rise to a need for a plan. One, what if you come into an unexpected inheritance or possibly even win the lottery? You're just very, very lucky. Well, there you go. There comes this influx of wealth and you don't have a plan in place to provide for what happens to that wealth should something happen to you. Or two, on the other side of the spectrum, what if you get into an accident or possibly become incapacitated in some other way? You really need a plan in place so that your money at that point in time can take care of you and be preserved and protected for your loved ones. So two perfect examples of why, in my opinion, everyone listening to this webinar and everyone in general should really have a plan. And what should you plan for? Planning now provides a level of comfort for both yourself and your loved ones that your personal and financial needs and goals will be achieved. So you can plan for possible incapacity or injury. Who's going to take care of your personal and financial needs if you become incapacitated, injured, in the hospital, undergoing a procedure, and a doctor needs to determine whether to go further? Speak for yourself, put a plan in place so that there can be a seamless transition in that situation and ensure that you're protected. Second scenario, the last 10 years of your life. Life expectancy has been increasing over the years. While these years are potentially the least expensive in terms of lifestyle, they are likely the most expensive in terms of medical needs and other needs. Most people, like Nicole touched on before, have multiple chronic health conditions and will need care and rely on family members to provide that care. With careful planning, you can implement a strategy to allow for your own independence and less of a burden on your family members. And three, unfortunately, plan for death. And while this is an uncomfortable topic, I bet if I poll every one of you, all of you would say that you've worked very hard for the level of wealth and assets you have accomplished over all these years, and you would like to ensure that that wealth and legacy is passed on to your loved ones. Okay. Where should you plan? Please consult with an estate planning attorney to create an estate plan that is tailored to your goals and objectives. If you don't consult with an estate planning attorney, while maybe any other attorney will draft a will, you cannot guarantee that that attorney is up on all the different strategies, options, and items available to you. So I would stress and impress upon you the importance of finding an expert. The practice of law over the years has evolved, as has medicine, to a very specialized practice, and a skilled estate planning attorney will give you all of those options and map out a plan that is specific to you. There are a lot of websites out there on the internet that will purport to provide you with a plan. LegalZoom is one of them. Please do not use any type of online platform. I have seen wills that clients have prepared in this manner, some of which we have managed to probate in the court once a client has passed away. If there is a minor error in those documents, such as no date, maybe the pages are incorrect, But I did have one client once who prepared this will and just failed to sign it because there was no signature line that the program put out on the will. And one thing in New York, a will must be signed at the bottom by the testator. So in that case, unfortunately, the client's wishes could not be adhered to because there's just nothing that we could do to salvage that will. So again, important, plan with a professional. When should you plan? It is never too early to put a plan in place. We are often approached by clients once they have a diagnosis, an upcoming surgery, or a procedure. And we do our best, and in all of those situations, get documents done and completed. However, that's not the best time to plan. The best time to plan is when you have a clear head, time to really review the documents, analyze them, digest them, speak with your professional, and make sure that you fully understand every word in the document. So plan now. Equally as important to putting a plan in place is to review whatever plan that you have periodically and certainly upon a change in circumstances. The plan that is right for you when maybe you're 30 years old and starting out with minor children is probably not the plan for you when you're approaching retirement and thinking about long-term care and how your assets can work for you. And examples on this slide of definitely when you should look at your plan again and possibly reach out to your professional include a birth of a child or grandchild, adoption, change in marital status, increase or decrease in personal wealth, receipt of a substantial inheritance or gift, moving to another state or special circumstances regarding a beneficiary, such as special needs for education, health, or business. So how do you plan? So this slide just lists some of the documents that are included in an estate plan. The first being a healthcare proxy, which Nicole touched on before. And a healthcare proxy goes hand in hand with a living will. We have a durable power of attorney, an appointment of agent, a will, and a trust. And I'll go into these in a little more detail in a minute. So, healthcare proxy. That grants the person you designate the authority to make your healthcare decisions if you cannot make them on your own behalf. And a living will goes hand in hand with your healthcare proxy, and that's a written statement of specific end-of-life healthcare wishes and desires. Your power of attorney grants the person you designate the authority to make financial decisions for you and engage in financial transactions on your behalf. It designates your wishes with respect to gifting. Both a healthcare proxy and a power of attorney work while you're alive. There's no need for these documents when the ultimate time comes that you pass away. So these should certainly be in place. I tell my clients all the time, you need these documents to work for you when you can't make these decisions, whether they be healthcare decisions or financial decisions. You speak and put the person in place that you would like to take charge in that moment. If you don't, New York State has a procedure to have a guardian appointed for you, but that decision is made by a judge. And while a judge tries to figure out what you would want in that situation, only you truly knows what that is. And putting these documents in place will ensure that you will have a voice. Appointment of agent to control disposition of remains allows you to designate who you would like to handle your funeral or burial, and also lets you put forth what you'd like to see. Do you want to be cremated? Would you like to have a funeral at a certain church, or I've had a client that says they want a party, not a remembrance ceremony. This is your opportunity to set forth those wishes. And then a will is a legal document that provides for the disposition of your assets on your death. If you fail to make a will, your estate will be distributed pursuant to New York State's law assuming you live in New York State, and it will provide for the disposition of your assets in that instance. So certainly every person should have a will. And people throw this term around a lot, is a trust. What is a trust? A trust is a set of rules on how to manage the assets you put into it. And there's a variety of reasons to establish a trust, some of which are set forth on this slide here. One type of trust is revocable. A revocable trust allows you to set up the trust and amend it, revoke it, or change its provisions. Revocable trusts are very often used if you have a family situation where you would like to avoid probate in your state of domicile. So, for example, you have many children and you're not treating them equally. You don't want to provide for your family members at all. Maybe you don't have any family members that you know of, or maybe you just want to maintain some level of privacy. In that instance, a revocable trust is a great tool for you. Similarly, if you have property in another state other than New York, very often we recommend clients create a revocable trust in that situation so that those properties can be administered seamlessly upon your passing. And then the other type of trust we prepare is an irrevocable trust. And this is a trust established by you for a specific purpose. So you have to figure out what a client's goals are. We create these types of trusts for tax planning, talking more pointed to what Nicole discussed before, care later on in life. We can create an irrevocable trust to provide a certain level of asset protection to protect a home from possible Medicaid claims in the future. And we also use a revocable trust very often if you have minor children, a disabled beneficiary, or a beneficiary that might suffer from some other type of condition or financial hardship. So substance abuse issues, marital difficulties, creditor problems. A revocable trust can prove to be a very valuable estate planning tool in those instances. So now let's get to some of these real life examples. Why should you plan? The first real life example of a failure to plan is possible incapacity or injury. So do you have documents in place, and do these documents provide for the care and your personal and financial needs long term? So I'll give you a real life example. I had a client years ago, it was a couple. They created healthcare proxies and power of attorneys, appointing each other as the primary agent. Unfortunately, at that point, they said, you know what, one of us will survive, one of us will be here, do not worry. Well, in that case, unfortunately, they were in an accident together, and they were both ended up in intensive care. In that instance, there was nobody available. The document did not provide a backup, a contingency. There was no one available to make their healthcare decisions, and there was no one available to access their funds to pay for household expenses, medical bills, or anything of that nature. So I do tell you to please look at your documents, make sure you have a backup to possibly avoid that type of situation. Second, security during later years. Are your assets of a level such that you may require Medicaid or some other form of government assistance? And have you explored how to structure your plan to maximize the care you receive and preserve the wealth you have created? So I had a client at one point who did not have any relatives, owned a home, did not do any planning, did not seek out an attorney other than to create a simple will. That client ended up needing round-the-clock care, did receive Medicaid, did receive care. But when that client passed away, unfortunately, a claim was put in against his estate to recover all of the costs of his care over time because the asset wasn't protected. And that claim had to be resolved before the beneficiaries received the money. So with proper planning, most, if not all of that client's wealth could probably have been preserved and protected for the people that the client would have liked to see receive that money. Minor or disabled beneficiaries. Have you decided who you would like to care for the personal needs and or assets of a minor child? Have you structured your plan such that assets you wish to leave to a disabled beneficiary can supplement but not supplant the benefits the beneficiary receives? Most people do not realize that in New York, if a minor inherits assets and their parent is alive, that parent does not automatically become the guardian of that person's money. So that is why you set up a trust for a minor. I have had more than one client where this just did not happen. And what has to happen is the parent, the surviving parent, has to actually go to court and be appointed as the court-appointed guardian of the minor's money. And every year has to account to the court for what is done with that money. And that money cannot be freely used by the surviving parent to pay for needs of the child, such as summer camp, private school tuition, or a graduation trip. And I have to believe that that was not the intended result. So with proper planning, you can ensure that should something happen, your children's money can be managed by someone you trust more flexibly without court involvement. Similarly, if you have a beneficiary that is disabled, you want to plan to make sure that that beneficiary's care and assistance is not interrupted by an influx of an inheritance. An inheritance will disqualify that beneficiary from government benefits. Putting a trust in place for that beneficiary at the outset will allow the beneficiary to continue to receive government assistance and allow the money, the inheritance, to be used for extras for that beneficiary. So very, very important planning tool. Substance abuse, creditor, matrimonial, or spendthrift issues. Have you structured your estate such that the assets can be safeguarded for this beneficiary? And have you selected the person or institution that you trust to manage assets? So here I have it actually a little bit more of a positive spin on things, a positive story. Very often clients come in and they have two children, one child that's financially independent, the other child that clearly never will be, right? And they say, well, I need someone or some institution to take care of my other child's money. And I don't want child number one to always have to take care of child number two and decide whether child number two can get that money. It's not fair. They're siblings above all else, and I don't want them to become, for lack of a better word, business partners. So what we do in that instance, and one opportunity that we have to help our clients, is we can set them up with some type of corporate trustee to manage the assets for child number two. Let child number one possibly be a co-trustee or just be a sibling. But you can feel comfort in the fact that you know an institution will be there managing the money for child number two and that child's needs on a long-term basis. Another reason, the failure to plan, you want to prevent disagreements. Have you structured your plan in a way to avoid a disagreement among family members? Have you considered who is best suited to manage your affairs post-death and any challenges? And have you considered long-term management of trust? So in addition to estate planning, my practice consists of estate litigation. And I see every day what happens when one sibling is put in a position of power and the other sibling feels slighted by it, when one sibling receives more and the other sibling receives less. There are many estate planning vehicles out there to possibly eliminate some of these disagreements, such as a trust, beneficiary designations. It's important that if you have any type of situation such as that, that you consult with a planning attorney and see what you can do to minimize any disagreements. Next is New York State's intestacy statute. New York has a law, like I said before, of how your estate is distributed if you have no will. Most people do not know what that law provides with respect to the distribution of assets. Does the distribution provided by intestacy comport with your wishes? Are you aware of the steps to admit a will to probate in New York? And will the probate process be difficult in your situation? So I have two quick examples here of cases we've handled in the past. In one case, spouse number one passed away suddenly without a will, leaving a spouse and a minor child. Under New York law, assets do not pass entirely to a surviving spouse when there are children. The spouse receives 50% and half of the balance, and the other half is split among the children, who in this case that we handled were minors. The spouse had to go to court to become the administrator of the other spouse's estate, post a bond, and then also determine how to go forward caring for children as a single parent without access to the money that was set aside for children. Could have been easily avoided by a plan. Another example I have, we had a client that passed away without any known heirs. We had no idea where to begin. We knew that the client's parents were deceased, that the client was not married and had no children. Well, in New York, to probate your will, we must locate your nearest heirs. And if we don't know who they are, we have to prove to the court that due diligence was used to locate those heirs. That is a lengthy, time-consuming process. And what I can tell you is almost everybody has heirs. You may not know who they are. You may have not met them in your lifetime, but they are likely out there. So, and then you have to notify those heirs. So if you're lucky, those heirs will not contest. But in some cases, those heirs come in and say, hey, wait, I would like a piece of that pie because I am the heir. So careful planning. Simple planning in that case, a revocable trust where all the assets went into the trust could have avoided the time and expense of an heirship search and can also possibly avoid a probate contest. So very important planning tools. And my last little topic here of real life examples of the failure to plan has to deal with estate tax. Both the federal government and New York State have a threshold on how much you can pass down to the next generation or someone other than a spouse without incurring estate tax. And there is a scheduled decrease in the federal estate tax exemption in 2026. So if your assets are of a level where there's likely an estate tax implication, then careful planning with an estate professional can allow you to minimize estate tax and maximize the amount that can pass to your beneficiary. So that is all I have today. I thank you very much for listening. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
For the healthcare proxy, how is it determined if a person's not able to make the decisions for themselves, or if the person they've named as their proxy is no longer able to make decisions?
So I think that, it depends on the condition of the person, of the principal, right? That's the person who created the healthcare proxy. If they're obviously not alert, undergoing a procedure, or diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia, this goes back to what Nicole spoke about before, your record, your portal. If it's clearly documented that they're incapacitated or clearly obvious that they cannot make those healthcare decisions for themselves, that it is likely that the medical professional will turn to the healthcare proxy. I am sure there are cases where someone tries to step in and says, well, mom doesn't really know what she wants. Mom wants that medication and I don't want mom to have it. And I think in that instance, it would be up to the doctor to really take a look. And if there was an indication that maybe there's some disagreement or as to capacity of mom, I think that it will be the doctor's call, or quite frankly, anyone could go to court at some point in time and try to determine whether mom was truly competent to make her own decisions.
And is it
I'm sorry, Donna, continue.
Is it difficult to name like the next in line to be the healthcare proxy? Is it a matter of getting in touch with the attorney who prepared the documents and making the change? Or does it have to be signed by a notary? I mean, does it need to go through all those kinds of things?
So a healthcare proxy does not need to be signed by a notary in New York. It just requires 2 disinterested witnesses to be valid. So we typically prepare 1 document. You have 1 healthcare proxy valid at a time. I appoint Stephanie Alberts, and if Stephanie Alberts cannot act, I appoint Nicole Christensen. So you would need to contact the attorney and just sign a new healthcare proxy.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of that, that's a great question, Donna. So one of the funny things I think about in New York and many states for healthcare proxy is that the healthcare proxy themselves, their signature is not on that document. So it's really important, those conversations with your healthcare proxy, so that they know what to do. and how to speak your choices. The other thing I think you were alluding to was if the person selected to be the healthcare proxy may not be fit or appropriate to be the healthcare proxy. That's again part of being a healthcare proxy. So when you're selecting that person, you have to select somebody. It's not who loves you the most or who would get hurt, their feelings hurt if they weren't your healthcare proxy, blase blue. It has to be the person that would carry out your wishes, and it's an ongoing conversation. So if that person cannot, then you pick the wrong person. That person picked the wrong person. They're not likely going to say, oh, I picked Stephanie and we don't think she's doing a good job. No, because I've already selected Stephanie. It's my voice. So that's why, again, avoiding a crisis is making sure you select the right person, and you can change it. It's not set in stone. What your wishes are and who your person is not set in stone until, God forbid, you're incapacitated. And whatever is there, and that's who they're going to go to. And again, it's only one person at a time. So if I say, nope, I'm not doing it, then it goes to Stephanie. They don't work together because that goes against what a healthcare proxy is. So it's one person at a time.
So like,
It's a really important question.
Here's like this situation. I have family members, they're married, they named each other as the healthcare proxy. They named their, son is the next in line after each other. And now one of them has not been diagnosed with dementia, but has been clearly exhibiting signs of dementia.
Mhm.
So just kind of wondering, like, how difficult it is for the one party to say, oh my gosh, they're not fit to be my healthcare proxy anymore. I want my son to step in. Is it,
That's not hard. You just
Not at
change your
all.
healthcare proxy. Yeah.
And I would recommend that you do it, because the last thing you want is when you try and use it for someone to constantly ask, well, what about this person? Why is this person not acting? And we often get that question when spouse one dies and spouse one is the primary agent. And I tell people, if you'd like to constantly carry around your healthcare proxy and a death certificate to prove to people that agent number one is no longer available, then you can do that. But I just prefer, it's not that difficult a process to create a healthcare proxy. In my mind, it's easiest to just delineate those people in an order and make it as easy as possible for the doctor to accept the document and carry out those wishes in that time of crisis. You want the least amount of questions possible.
Thank you.
And to Nicole's point, I get asked all the time, well, I have 3 children. Can I appoint them all as my healthcare proxy? And they'll agree. Not the point of the document, not the point at all. The point is 3 of them are in that one room. Let's hope they're all going to get together and talk and speak and come to a decision. But if they cannot, or we need one voice, who is that one voice? And that is why it has to be a hierarchy. It cannot be a group.
Well said. And so Care Answered works with attorneys like Stephanie with the healthcare proxy. If they want to put your healthcare proxy in our care control partners, so that if you designate a change, we can do it. It'll be sent electronically to your lawyer, to your healthcare proxy, to your power of attorney, if you wish, whoever it is that you want, so that it's changed right there and then. So it doesn't have to be any kind of process. So yeah, so for your friends or whoever that is, I would suggest they change it now. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you all for being here. I hope you learned a lot, and please reach out. We will send a recorded copy to you, and it'll be available also on Care Answered's website. So again, thank you. Enjoy the day, enjoy the season. And again, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicole, and thank you,
It was
Karen.
very helpful. Thank you.
Very well done today. Really, really well done. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Nice to see you again, Nicole.
Always great to see you, Alan.